always focus on the invitations at the end. So different type of offers that you have in the book from a business perspective, just making sure that you have every avenue open to connect with your readers and for them to potentially hop on a call with you.
You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 63. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question. What has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Profit designers, have you ever thought you might want to write a book? On today's episode, Mike and I thought it might be fun to bring you onto the back end of the book publication process and give you a little inside peek into what actually goes into writing a book, getting it published, and then what you need to know about after it's published, because that's really where the fun begins. On today's episode, we're bringing you Paul Brodie, who's the CEO of Brodie Consulting Group. As a book publisher, he helps coaches, consultants, speakers, and business owners share their story with a proven system. What makes Paul's books different is his ability to explain complex ideas and strategies in a simple, accessible way that you can implement immediately. Paul is a lifelong learner and earned an MA in teaching from Louisiana College and a BBA in management from the University of Texas at Arlington. In his spare time, he loves to read and write books, to travel, especially to Maui and Las Vegas, and he's an avid sports fan. Paul is also a proud Rotarian and a member of the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce. We are nearing the end of 2019, and now is a great time to be taking stock of your business to get ready for 2020. Profit designers, we have created a tool for you at Tap the Potential to help you identify the parts of your business that are strong and the parts of your business that need attention in order for you to have a highly profitable, great place to work that gives you your life back. You know, do things like take a 4-week vacation if you want to, or just have that freedom to do something else in your life that's important to you besides working all the time in your business. So if you want to get a handle on what to put attention to in 2020 to make your business sustainably profitable, to get your business where it can run without your daily involvement, take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. You will get feedback on what's strong in your business and what areas need the most attention from you in 2020. Again, you can take that at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing, Sabrina?
Well, I tell you what, I think I'm going to be doing really well after the book launch. And we're recording this ahead of the book launch. And when it drops, I think by the time we're all listening to this, I'm doing really well. It's an intense period right now.
It is. There's nothing in particular that's difficult about publishing or launching a book. It's just there's so many tedious working parts. And if you just miss one little thing, it can completely wreck a launch.
So now my anxiety just went way up.
No, you're good.
What am I missing?
Yeah. Which little detail is falling through the cracks right now as we speak? So you are a master at the book launch process. You've written many books yourself. I think you've gotten 15 published books yourself.
Yes.
So what got you started in this?
So a funny thing that happened was in 2011, May 2011, I was wrapping up my third year teaching here in Arlington. I was teaching English as a second language, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And during that time, I just wrapped up my master's degree, and I was just not taking care of myself. Long story short, I was feeling terrible one afternoon, got through my classes. I went immediately to go see the doctor because I knew something was wrong. Went to the doctor, got checked out, and he came back in the room, took one look at me, looked at the charts, looked back at me and goes, you know what? you're a mess. You are right near 340 pounds. You are right at the level of being a type 2 diabetic, which runs in my family. Your blood pressure is too high. Blood sugar level's too high. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't get your act together, you're going to be dead in 5 years. He had my attention. Long story short, took care of everything, completely changed my lifestyle, lost 60 pounds, and I've done what only 5% of this population can do, and that's actually keep the weight off long term. Now, if I yo-yoed a little bit, absolutely. But what happens is when you yo-yo, you have to adjust. So I was inspired to share this story. I wanted to write a book about this struggle, but I didn't want it to be one of those, oh, look at me, everything's so perfect, I lost all this weight, because we all know that's a bunch of BS. We know there's some challenges when it comes to being healthy, for health and wellness, to losing weight, but more importantly, keeping the weight off. So I wanted to show all the challenges, all of the issues, and also all the triumphs with that. I wanted to share that vulnerability, but of course, I had no idea how to do any of this. So what happened? That idea remained an idea for 4 years. And what happened was in 2015, publishing was becoming easier than ever. I had a couple of friends that launched a book. We had a lot of success. And then going, why do I keep holding off this book? So we go on a family trip. We do a family trip every single year. This year we went to Maui. Back in 2015, we went to Vegas. I'm on this flight to Vegas and I'm going, why do I keep holding off on this book? So I decided, no more excuses. Let's tell this story. The next morning, I'm at the Mirage by the pool, typed out the entire outline of that book. A week later, wrote over 20,000 words over 3 days. And then, of course, I had to figure out, all right, great. Now what? So what happened? I spent half the day learning everything I could about publishing, found an editor, formatter, book cover designer, and several of those people I still work with. Here we are several years later. And the other thing that happened is I wanted to make a point to learn everything possible about marketing, because I knew that if this book didn't get launched correctly, then it was going to fall into the Amazon.com rainforest. That's what I always call it, because there's so many books that are out there that if they are not properly marketed, then they're just going to go into the rainforest. Launched the book August 2015, became my first bestseller. Then I launched 2 other books that were based off of motivational seminars. And then this is when the life-changing thing happened. And this was not an expectation. I originally was doing the books to share my story, and I was also wanting to utilize it for my public speaking fees, to build those opportunities to go speak at companies and for different universities. And what happened was I started to have readers reaching out to me and going, Paul, could you help us share our story? Could you help us with publishing and marketing the book? And that inspired me to write my 4th book on publishing. And then what happened was, at that time, I was a special needs teacher, and I was still teaching during the day, and I would coach people during the night. And finally, June 2017, we were able to build up the business to the point where it was fully sustainable as a full-time career. So I retired from teaching and worked full-time into building my publishing company. It's one of those things where it takes time. There's no such thing, as you all know, as an overnight success. It just doesn't happen. So we spent over a year and a half building that foundation, and then over these past 2 years, taking it to the next level. We offer our publishing services, book launch marketing, executive ghostwriting. We even do executive coaching as well for people who actually still want to learn the process. But from what I have learned, most people that we work with, which are speakers, coaches, consultants, business owners, they don't have time to learn this stuff. So they want us to help them with sharing their story and taking care of all those little tedious things that happen in regards to when you're publishing a book, when you're marketing the book, and then from that point onwards.
Amen. Because, it is so true. I'm running a business. I don't have time to market my book. And this is my 3rd book. My first book, I didn't realize that I needed to market it, but the writing the book and publishing it, I wasn't done at that point. So that one is in the Amazon rainforest, folks. I really am not even sure how to find it myself. But this piece about, it's really clear, like when you started writing your book, the passion took over. Once you said, I'm doing it, the passion took over. And so the book got written, but then there's so much to learn out there about getting the word out and marketing it and keeping that going. Mike, I want to let you jump in here because I know you're in that early phase right now. What do you want to ask Paul?
Yeah, so I'm certainly in that early phase, and, I've been kicking around, this concept and this idea for quite some time now. I go through these stages where I'll spend some time, I'll write a little bit, and then it goes on the shelf for 4 months because it seems overwhelming, and then I'll pick it back up again, and it's kind of a cyclical thing. So, I'm certainly interested in, so using me as an example of somebody who has some content, but not a lot of content, somebody who needs to work on the meat of the book. Where should I go from here? What should I focus on? How does a service like yours help someone like me who has a great concept but needs to push it out? How do I get out of this state of confusion, I guess?
One is to stop overthinking everything. And I'm always very direct with my clients about that because our core values are truth and service. And we're always going to be very upfront and we're going to be very clear. But the main reason is because we want to make sure that you are successful with your book. And one of the main things that I tell prospective clients is this: you don't need to write War and Peace. You don't need to write a huge book. What you need is a book that focuses on 10 key talking points, especially if this is going to be a nonfiction business type of book where you're a consultant or an aspiring author or public speaker or a business owner. You want to focus on 10 key talking points that's going to really spotlight what you do, but most importantly, how you can help people. Talking about your journey, talking about your struggles. Each of those talking points, otherwise known as chapters, you need to have, and this is where we do things a little differently. You don't necessarily need to even write your book. If you prefer to speak it out, there is an app that we recommend where you can actually hit the record button on your phone. You can speak out each chapter, which you need about 10 to 12 minutes of audio for each one of those. You hit the stop button. When you're done, you hit transcribe. This is how they make their money. They charge like $1 a minute to transcribe it. They have a human being that does it, so it's not artificial intelligence. And within 6 hours, you just got your first chapter delivered to you. Then, of course, you got to get it edited and cleaned up, and that's something that what my company does. But there's really simplistic things to do with this, where if you can focus on one talking point a day for 2 weeks, you can crank out a book. And some of the responses I get, well, what if it's not perfect? And I go, done is better than perfect. Two majors I always teach: done is better than perfect. And don't be afraid to take the plunge, because the main thing that readers want, they want something that's direct and to the point, something they can read on a flight from Dallas to Vegas. The next thing they want is to be able to connect with you. Connection is the biggest thing that people want right now. That's one of the main things. And I'm going to give you an example. Last week, I was part of an author promotion where 15 best-selling authors got together, and we emailed all our lists going, hey, we've got 15 books available. This is what happened, because one of the things from a marketing perspective that I also make crystal clear with my clients is it's not all about the front end. Yes, the best-selling author thing, it's nice. It's a spoiler. We're going to get you to that point, but that's not going to make you $1 million. That's going to give you credibility. What happens is what makes the money is the back end. And one of the things with my book that we gave away, which was the Get Published book, we have an offer in there to invite people to set up a strategy session with our team so we can help them with their book. During that day when we did that launch last week, we had 900 people that were added to my own list. And out of those, we already had 12 strategy sessions booked. Now, the reason I mention that is the fact is that's what happens when you have a book that is leveraged, that is crystal clear with your offer, and is not non-salesy. It's one of those things where you build a greater connection with your audience because they've connected with you with the book. Now they want to know more. Now they want to potentially connect with you to get help with their book. And when they see that someone has that holistic view and is not salesy, it's not a sales script, we just want to know how we can help. When that level of just being genuine comes out, then that is how you can really take your book to the next level where you get the best of all worlds.
That's awesome. I'm sitting here thinking about all the time that I've wasted when I could have just, jumped in and make some progress in a much quicker way. But And I like what's important to me also is keeping it genuine and having a story to tell. I think that's key. And I certainly have some stories to tell, that's for sure.
Well, and the scary thing is, especially businesses, most business owners don't necessarily get that. It's not about a pitch. It's not about a script. It is about genuinely caring about people. That comes across where you don't have to be salesy. I had a conversation with a lady, one of those strategy sessions, this lovely lady out in California a couple of days ago. She did not want to write a book for business reasons. She lost her husband, stage 4 cancer, about, I think it was like 3 months ago. She wants to write a book to honor him. And as part of that, she's still grieving. And that's going to be part of her therapeutic process to help with that, is that she wants to honor her husband. And we spent 40 minutes on the phone where I talked to her about some of the different things that she could utilize to be able to do that. And most importantly, to share his story and to honor him. And that's the other thing we do too, is we want people, our clients too, if they're not necessarily wanting to do a business book, but if they want to share their legacy, if they want to share the journey about their family. One of my clients, his name's Alex Nason. We just did a publishing deal with him where he did a book about immigrating over from the Soviet Union to the United States. And he had pictures of his family, his journey. He just wanted to honor his family. And that's one of the other things that we take great pride in. For us, it's not just about helping the businesses, because that's a wonderful part of it. But also when we can get to people share their story about their families and their legacies, that helps with leaving that legacy for many, many years. Because let's face it, Amazon's not going anywhere. Amazon's going to outlive me and many other generations. They're not going anywhere. So when you have a story that can essentially, I don't want to say necessarily immortality, but it leaves that legacy for potentially hundreds of years. And that's what's so powerful about sharing your story with the world.
That's very inspiring. I just start thinking about, if I wasn't writing a business book, what I'd be writing about, or what could I be writing about? So you've given me something to chew on here, Paul. I want to speak to the therapeutic and learning part of writing a book, because you talk about, the one woman who's lost her husband, and the writing is going to be part of her therapeutic process. When we write about parts of our lives, things that we've been through, it's a way to bring closure to those experiences. And through the writing process, we get our own insights that we don't have if we're not taking the time to write about them.
You're absolutely correct. And I'll give you an example of one of the books that I wrote personally that to me was incredibly therapeutic, because I've written a variety of different books, business books, motivational books, travel books. And I will be completely transparent. The travel books were wonderful tax write-offs. I was able to write off roughly $40,000 in trips the last few years, including multiple trips to Maui. And again, all of this is completely legit. We went through 5 different CPA just to confirm this. But getting back to those personal books, one of the books that I wrote, and this was probably the hardest book that I've ever written out of my 15, and that was called The Pursuit of Happiness, because that book, in certain parts of it, got pretty dark, because I talked about my battles with depression in my teenage years. I was bullied severely during my 6th grade year at the school I was at in elementary, and it got so bad we actually had to move to the other side of Arlington because it was just getting to be too much. The school wasn't doing anything about it. And I mean, with kids, if they know they can get away with something, they're going to do it. And it just got to the point where people just stopped caring about it. I was literally covered in bruises every day. It was brutal. I mean, we're talking 5-on-1, 6-on-1. I was always a big kid, so kind of an easy target. But it got really bad. And long story short, we had to move. And I shared that. And I talked about dealing with depression, and also going from having this beautiful house in Interlaken, which is a very affluent area here in Arlington, to living in a townhouse and barely having 2 pennies to rub together. Those are the things that are not easy to talk about, but then you're able to connect that with the triumphs, with working through college, able to graduate from college debt-free, and able to buy this beautiful house in West Arlington 15 years ago that is now doubled in value. And it's home. It's where I work. My home office is here. My business is here. My family, to be able to have the opportunity to take care of my family is everything. And it's just sharing those stories. It's tough, but it's incredibly therapeutic. And that's one of the things. I've gone through this myself. And is it easy? No. Is it going to make you a little emotional? Yeah. Are you going to shed a couple of tears? Absolutely. But it's one of the most therapeutic things that you can do is to get that story out. And also it really does strengthen your relationship with your reader. And not necessarily just for business reasons, just to connect with them on a one-on-one basis, because a lot of those people that are reading these books, they've gone through those struggles. People that are reading a book called The Pursuit of Happiness, they're wanting to increase their happiness. So I get to share that journey. But yeah, that was by far the toughest book I've ever written.
On the podcast, that's so much a part of why Mike and I do this podcast. And we're very committed to being real and authentic and sharing the entrepreneurial journey. And we get a lot of feedback from our profit designers as we're just out and about, and people come up and they'll mention to me about a previous episode and the conversation or something that touched them in a particular way. And I think we don't often realize sometimes our stories feel very sensitive to us, and we feel like, I don't know if I want to put it out there. And when we put it out there, we're sharing it with somebody who needs to hear it at that time. Somebody's hearing it and it's having an impact because now they are no longer feeling alone in this stuff. And that conversation that happens in the head, like when you read a book or when you listen to a podcast, it is about building a relationship and connecting.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing, is connecting with the other person. It's the most important thing you can do as an author.
And I think, too, the power in that, right, is just like you guys were both saying, is, when you keep things in your head, right, it's like you have the head trash syndrome, right? But in speaking about it or writing about it, it can become very therapeutic as long as it's truthful and you are being, you're digging deep and you are being vulnerable. And, I know from myself personally that a significant amount of my professional and personal growth has been through being vulnerable and opening up and talking about things and, even writing things that I don't necessarily share. And maybe I'm learning right now that I should share some of those things, but just getting it out of my head and kind of, memorializing it on paper or just by talking about it is certainly very helpful.
Well, the other thing with that too is, and I think every author struggles with this, and that is imposter syndrome. And Robert Kiyosaki said it best. He has a quote about, you are already the expert, to paraphrase it. And it's the truth. You're already an expert in your field. You have something to share. Get out there and share it, because there's many crappy books out there, but there's many very good ones out there as well. And the main thing is, you got a story to share. That's what people want. They want to be able to connect with you. So as long as you have a story, share that journey out there, because I always view everything as the power of one, where if I was able to connect with one person and help them in their journey, then it's worth it. And a great example of that was when I did Motivation 101, my second book. And I received an email a couple of years ago. Actually, it was a Facebook message. And it was from a lady who was a nurse, of all things, in Hong Kong. And she completely changed her life after she read that book. She was in a bad situation with her career. And I don't know how the book did it, but she was like, I read your book. I was inspired. I changed my life. I have this great new job. My health's much better. I just wanted to thank you for it. To me, I would take that over a royalty check any day of the week.
Wow. Yeah, that is so fulfilling to get that kind of feedback and to realize the impact of sharing our stories. The other thing for me along this journey has been how much I learn as I write. And with the How to Hire the Best, we're into 2 editions now. And with the first edition, I started out, and as you spoke about imposter syndrome, I thought, boy, do I feel like an imposter because I don't know the answers. And that's why I started interviewing business owners to find out what they were doing that was working. And I learned the answers in writing that book, and that was great. But then as I put it out there and people started using what I was teaching and I was getting feedback, I learned some more. And as I wrote the How to Hire the Best Contractors Edition, when I started it, I thought this is going to be a piece of cake. I just need to learn what contractors are dealing with. That's going to be the new learning here. I can do that. That's easy. And what I didn't realize is that the real learning for me happened as I wrote this book, because I went deeper with my own system in developing it and fleshing it out. And it took me a year longer to write this book than I anticipated. And it was because of the writing process and how much I learned as I just took the time to sit down and write and think things through.
And the funny thing is, the more books that you write, the better you get at it. Because from book 1 to book 15, it was a whole different level. Even my editor's like, it's amazing to see the evolution with all of your books, because she's edited every single one of my books. So she's seen the process and seen it go through 15 books, and several of those books that had second editions. It really is amazing how that progresses over time and how much better you get as you keep doing this. It's like riding the bike. You just get better and better at it.
So knowing what you know now, after 15 books, what is something that you would go back and say to your past self when you were writing your second or third book? Because that's where I am. What advice would you give to that self?
To always focus on the invitations at the end. So different type of offers that you have in the book from a business perspective, just making sure that you have every avenue open to connect with your readers and for them to potentially hop on a call with you. Because I think from a business perspective, if I would have done that, I probably could have left teaching even earlier, which is fine. Everything happens for a reason. So that progression worked well. But I think the main advice I'd give to any authors out there, as you're starting out, just make sure that you have everything leveraged in your book. So if you are doing a business book, make sure that you've got some sort of strategy session invitation in there just so you can be able to connect. So I'd say that for a business perspective. From a personal perspective, one of the things that we did after the second book was we recorded our own audiobooks for most of those books going forward. One of the best things that you can do to do a final proofread of your book, because no editor, no matter how good they are not going to catch every single mistake. They're just not. You're going to find things, you can fix it. It's not a big deal. But again, done is better than perfect. So either speak your book out loud as you go through it, or record an audiobook version, because you will catch any final mistakes as you do that. Because when you're reading it out loud and you're focusing on that, you will catch things that you did not catch before. So that's one of the pieces of advice that I can give, just because that's one thing where if I could have gone back to my first book and did that, that would have been the first thing.
Paul, you have no idea how timely that little piece of advice is. I have my final draft back from the interior designer. I've got to read it one more time before it's going out for publication. Guess what I'm doing this afternoon?
A whole lot of talking, it looks like.
I think so. I've got my podcast studio all set up, ready to go. I was going to dive in and read it with a cup of coffee after we got off the podcast, but I think I'm going to shift gears here. So thank you so much.
Well, and I'm going to give you one other piece of advice with that. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. So you can read it. Is this a PDF file or a Word file?
It's PDF file.
Okay. So with the PDF file, what you're going to want to do is have a piece of paper with you as you're going through this. And then when you find a mistake, stop for a moment, jot down exactly where that error is and what needs to be fixed. So literally page 5, paragraph 3, sentence 1, this word. And just make sure every time you do that, you catch it, you write it down. And then at the end of that chapter, go back and make those adjustments on that chapter. So chapter 1, make those adjustments then. Chapter 2, then go make the same adjustments. Kind of like that same process where we're talking about how you can do your book like one chapter a day. Yep. It's the same thing. We're focused on one chapter at a time. Otherwise, you're going to have like 100 different notes on there. Well, maybe not 100, but at least maybe 20 or 30 things that you're going to want to adjust. It's easier to do it one chapter at a time. That way it doesn't become too overwhelming. And then the other thing too is don't try to do it all in one sitting, because what will happen is you're going to get tired. You're going to get a little groggy. You're going to miss a couple things. So my suggestion would be to focus on maybe the first 3 to 4 chapters today. Same thing tomorrow and Sunday, and just get it cranked out over a few days. You got the weekend. It's worth it to spend an extra day or two to make sure it's right.
Oh, that's fantastic. I will definitely do that. And we have a saying at my house, quiet on the set. That means my kids have to be quiet in the background. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Paul, because I imagine we also have some people listening who they're getting very inspired about writing their book, getting excited, ready to go here with these great tips. One consideration is the difference between self-publishing and publishing with a publisher. Can you speak some to the pros and cons of that and how to make that choice, or where do we even start to look to make that a decision like that?
So there's a few different methods. There is, of course, you mentioned self-publishing. There is vanity publishing. There is hybrid publishing. We're a hybrid publisher, and I'll go into more about that process in a moment. And then you have your traditional big five companies, which take up to 2 years to get a book out. Self-publishing, I think now it's easier in some areas, but it's also harder in other areas. If you just want to get a Kindle out there, it's not too difficult. But to get the paperback done, to get it approved, to get professional covers, it's harder than ever because Amazon now is pickier than ever in regards to approving the paperback version of your book, in particular the cover. The other thing is that what they're doing is every single week, they are doing random checks on books. So your book might get picked, it might not. They're going to go in there, they're going to make sure all your web links are working correctly, there's no major typos. I'm pretty sure they're using some sort of AI program to go through most of this. But if there is an issue, you're going to get a Kindle quality notice. And they're going to say, hey, fix this. You have a certain amount of time to do it, or else we're going to take your book off of Amazon. So these are some of the things you have to be careful of. When you are going the self-publishing route, that is very daunting. We might not necessarily be able to get that figured out. When you're working with a hybrid publisher like us, we're used to Amazon. We pay attention to every single thing they do. We are very familiar with their algorithms for marketing the book. We're very familiar with their Kindle quality notices, with getting a paperback version of your book approved, in particular the cover, and making sure everything's proper and professional. Now, self-publishing, yes, that is the most economical way to do it, but it's also going to cost you the most amount of time. So depending on what you value more, time or money, that's the direction you want to look at. You also want to make sure you have a professional product. Going the traditional route, yes, you could write a bunch of Q letters and potentially get a publisher within a year or two, possibly. But the main thing traditional publishers want to know is how big is your platform. They want to know if you have a social media following of thousands of people. They want to know if you have an email list of 5 to 10,000, because they do not want to market your book. They want to publish it, but they expect you to do the marketing. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I got with my own podcast, with our Get Published podcast, where we've interviewed now 410 people. Sabrina, you were on the show recently and had a great conversation talking about your journey. But one biggest thing that I realized is you go through a big five publisher, you are expected to do the marketing. Now, with hybrid publishing, and vanity is basically what it is. It's vanity. They're going to promise you the moon and the stars. A lot of the times they're not going to deliver. And I hate to put every vanity company in that box, but there's just a lot of fly-by-night operations out there where they promise you the moon and the stars. Hybrid is what we do. And the main thing that we do is we do work with business owners, speakers, consultants, coaches, and we just help them get crystal clear. Now, with us, is there an investment? Absolutely. There's a one-time investment that is up front for a publishing service, for a book launch marketing service, and then there's nothing else. You keep the royalties, you keep full creative control. You kind of talked about quiet on the set. One of the things that we talk about with our clients is they get final cuts. They have full editorial control of their book because it represents them, it represents their business, and it represents their brand. So we help our clients get crystal clear with their books. And again, most of our business, they are business books, and we help them leverage their book with the back end. And that's one thing I always want to be clear about. You are not going to be a millionaire from royalties. There's just too many books out there. Now, can we help you get your book launched correctly with our system? Absolutely. But the main thing is having that offer in the book, being crystal clear about it, being authentic. And the other thing is we don't work with everyone. If we are just dealing with people that are just salesy, we're not going to work with them. We want to work with people who genuinely care about others. And because that's going to come across, just like we've talked about in the show today, it does come across when you're genuine and you want to help. So we want to help our authors get crystal clear with that. But again, we also want our clients to be able to make their investment back as soon as possible. The nice thing, whether you go self-published, vanity, hybrid, whichever format you go with, one, the investment is fully tax deductible. So that's the nice part. The second part of that is with our clients, we typically help them make their investment back within the first 2 to 3 months because we are making their offer crystal clear in the back end. We help them with book sign-ins. We help them get on a few different podcasts. There's some different things that we do. We also do a press release. Now, I'll be clear about this. Press releases, a lot of the time, it's about the author, but they're absolutely thrilled to have that. And then we do send it out to different media outlets. But the main thing is that you get that feel of like a 360 launch where, yes, we're going to get you on different podcasts. We're going to get you a press release if that's what you want. We're going to help you with your launch, make sure that it's successful so you can refer to yourself as a best-selling author. One of the biggest things that I learned was with my second book, with Motivation 101, that was based off a motivational seminar. We were charging, before we started with that book, $500 a speech. After the book came out, with being a best-selling author, the fees went up to $2,000 and now they're $3,000 a speech. So it's just amazing that best-selling author title, what it can do for your business, because it really does help. Authority is always the key word people like to use because it's the root of author. I mainly use the C word, and that is credibility. What does a book give you? It gives you credibility, and it gives you years of experience because clearly you're an expert in your area because you just wrote a book about it.
Yeah, that piece I can definitely speak to. And I just want to underline what you're saying, that the book itself is not going to make you rich. The number of copies that we've sold of the first How to Hire the Best edition on Amazon have not made me rich. But the pieces, everything that comes along with it, and that's been, getting that book out there has been a big part of building our business here at Tap the Potential. And I've been exposed to people and met people that I would have never met had I not written that book. So I really believe it's about the long game.
And that's exactly what it is. And that's why we primarily focus on those type of business books. And we do the occasional fiction book as well. But what we found is with fiction authors, we have to be very clear about the expectations because you're not going to be the next Stephen King. Unless you have built a platform of 50 to 100,000 people, it's just not going to happen. So that's why we primarily focus on nonfiction and on business books, because we want our clients to recoup their investment as soon as possible, because that book is the foundation of their platform. And same thing on the flip side with people that want to leave a legacy, to share their story. A lot of the times we won't even do the marketing for them because we're like, hey, this is for you. This is for your family. So I get it. So I realize you don't want to make millions of dollars on this, and I'm just going to be realistic. It's probably not going to happen. So let's get this book out there. Let me help you set up a couple of book sign-ins, maybe get you on some local media. But the main point of the story was for you to share this with your family. So we want to put you in that direction. And I think that's the biggest thing, knowing that we're going to be crystal clear with you. It's not about how much money you spend. It's about making sure that it's the best fit for you. And I'll flat out tell a client, listen, we're probably just better doing the publishing side of this. And for most of our marketing packages, we focus on that with business owners because we know we can their investment as soon as possible.
Let me ask a big question for myself and then anyone else who's listening. What is the typical investment range for someone to do this properly?
No, that's a great question, because one of the things I learned growing up is to make money, you do it to spend money. So this is how it works. So we do have our book publishing service. That service makes sure that you have your Kindle version of your book, has a paperback version of your book, make sure it's edited, formatted, book cover for both of them. You're going to have a proper professional product. It's not going to be self-published. It is through a publishing company. Our publishing imprint is called BCG Publishing. So everything's done professionally. For that investment, it is $5,000. If people want to go through our book launch marketing service, that one is also $5,000. It does guarantee that your book is a bestseller, but the main thing is we're going to make sure that it is leveraged with your offer. So those readers, they have the opportunity to become clients. We also help with the book sign-ins. We also help out with getting on different podcasts, as we talked about, press releases. And as I mentioned, both of those are $5,000. What we do, though, is if we do have a client that wants to go with both of those services, then we do offer a discount with that, where we'll do both of them for $8,000. And then we also have our executive coaching, which is around that same range. And those are the main things that we do to help. Now, we also do executive ghostwriting. That is a little bit higher end, just because we are literally sitting down with the clients and we're essentially getting the book out of them. We're meeting with them over 8 to 10 different sessions. So there's a lot of time invested. So, and I'll tell you right now, our ghostwriting starts at $15,000 up, and just depending on how big that book ends up. So those are the things that we offer. These are things that we help. But the main thing is, one, it is fully tax deductible. But the other thing is, we're going to do everything in our power for our clients to recoup their investment as soon as possible. But we have to do that by being truthful and with our service, being very clear. Listen, you're not going to make this back in royalties. You're going to make this on the back end. You're going to make this with leveraging the services that you offer and getting clients that way. And we've been doing this now for 4 years. One of the things that we talk about, it's not a gimmick, it's a proven system, and it works. And it's just the main thing is that you have to trust the process.
Sure.
Well, and I want to speak to the system side of this too, Paul, because Amazon, the algorithm is highly complex. And I know when you and I spoke a couple of weeks back, you talked about how you are studying that and you are staying on top of it regularly. So just that part of that knowledge of understanding how Amazon works and what needs to be done to get to bestseller status, it's highly valuable.
Well, and it constantly changes. And that's the biggest thing. It changes on a whim. Every single day, every single hour, there is always a tweak to it. And it's just really staying on top of that, but also staying on top of the trends. One of the biggest things that happened this past year was Amazon absorbed CreateSpace. CreateSpace was how you get your paperback version of your book done. Now every single thing's on Amazon. And now that everything's in that same Amazon family, that's how they're able to do all those quality control checks. That's how they've gotten even stricter in regards to approving paperback covers. Because that's the biggest challenge I've seen for people that go the self-published route is Amazon will not approve that cover. And then they're in a lurch where they're either going to put the book out just in Kindle or they're scrambling to find someone to help them. So the nice thing with working with a company like us is that we know the issues. We also know how to fix it. And we walk our clients through that entire process going, hey, this is what's going on. This is how it's going to get fixed. This will be sorted out within the next 24 to 48 hours. And that's what happens.
Wow. So much to learn here, Paul. This is a whole other world, the book publishing and the marketing side of it. So it's been very enlightening, even as I'm in the middle of this and I'm still learning all of this. It's been very enlightening to have you here with us and sharing what you're sharing. And I feel like I know Mike's inspired. I think he's going to be writing his book this afternoon. I'm going to be recording my audio of my book this afternoon.
I'm putting you guys to work.
Yeah.
We're going to work after we get off this.
All right.
We thought it was Friday afternoon and we were done, but no, apparently not. But I really appreciate you being here with us. How can our profit designers learn more about you? And if they want to work with you and get your service, where should they go?
So the best way to do that is to go to our website, which is getpublishedsystem.com. Again, the website is getpublishedsystem.com. And there's a few different options on there. So you go to the site. One of the first things you're going to see on the top menu is there's an opportunity to download a free book. So the free book is our Get Published book. It's our digital copy. It's a great opportunity to check that out. And you can really see how you can leverage your book, whether it's leaving a legacy, whether it's sharing your story to grow your business. We cover that in the book. A couple of other things on there. There is a 10-minute video of an interview I did recently over the past month with a good friend of mine here at local Arlington. They have a show called Biz TV. It's a short 10-minute interview, but I encourage you to go check it out. You're going to be able to hear a bit more about my story, about the experiences and how we help our clients. There's also an opportunity on there if you want to set up a complimentary strategy session with our team, and you can get more information about what we do. And the main thing that we're going to ask is tell us about your book. Tell us about how we can help. Tell us about some of the struggles that you're having, and that's it. There's no script. There's no format. We just want to know about your journey, but more importantly, how we can potentially help in that. You can also check out our podcast on the webpage. We have our Get Published podcast, 410 episodes now. So a lot of different shows. You can check out the show that we did together, which was a lot of fun, which I believe was just in the past. Actually, funny thing is, your episode goes live today.
Oh, does it? Okay.
I just realized that. Yeah, it's actually, you're going to get an email from me after this call. Hey, your episode is live.
I'll have to listen to it on my way home.
Yeah, that is too funny. So yeah, that's available. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. But yeah, the website's the hub. So you can get a lot of good information, a lot of good value. And you can also find out about our services, how we help. We do talk about a 6-step process that we utilize. And it really is, the whole thing is a system. Our company line is a proven system that works. And again, that's not some sort of just a line. It is a spoiler because we've done this for 4 years now. We know what we're doing. But the main thing is we want to help you share your story.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Paul. And I think Mike's going to be listening to a podcast. I'm going to be getting the word out to our audience who wants to listen to that podcast. Lots of good stuff going on here.
Hey, it's a great way to start off a Friday.
Yes.
It is.
All right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye. Is your business on track to being a highly profitable, great place to work? Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment and find out now. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.